hormone, glucagon. Glucagon and insulin are oppositional hormones, but they're involved in balancing glucose, right? So glucagon travels through the whole bloodstream, ends up in the liver and in your big muscles where glycogen is also stored, and it causes glycogenolysis, a catabolic reaction where now that glycogen is now broken apart, and glucose, individual glucose is now released out into the bloodstream, and then what happens to your blood glucose level? It comes back up, and your brain's happy, and you don't get hypoglycemic. What does hypoglycemic mean? Low blood sugar. Do people feel that when they get hypoglycemic?
They start fainting, they get yellow.
They get diaphoretic, they get shaky, they get tachycardic. It's a whole bad feeling when people get hypoglycemic. So I want you to understand these processes of what an anabolic and catabolic process is, and certainly how that explains that from glycogenolysis and glyconeogenesis. Now, we already know that, because some people choose to do this, right? Some people choose to cut carbohydrates completely out of their diet, so they get into what is that diet called? Keto diet. And you can even, and now they even sell keto strips in like CVS and Walgreens, right? So that you can know if you've actually reached a ketoacidosis. So how do you check that? Urine. That's right, because you're dumping ketones in your urine. So ketone acidosis means you're actually dumping ketones in your urine, which you're not supposed to have there, but it will show up in your urine. You'll actually smell it. People who are in true ketone acidosis, you'll smell it. You'll smell it on you. People think I can smell people who are having a different diet. That's true, but actually what you're probably smelling is yourself. You're smelling yourself that's in a different metabolic state. So proteins and fats will convert to glucose to get into the Krebs cycle. They will do it in two different places. So your amino acids are what? Proteins. They will break into the Krebs cycle inside the mitochondria. You're both doing it inside the mitochondria right here at the pyruvate level. So amino acids, by the way, your body will go from carbohydrates. Once the carbohydrates run out, what do they run to next? Fats. You're always going to go to fats next because that's where most of your energy is stored. If it runs out of fats, then it's going to go to your amino acids. So if you've ever seen anybody starving, you will see that your muscles are one of the very first places that you will start to lose, and you will quickly lose muscle mass if you were starving. You'll go after your arm muscles or your leg muscles, and you will literally have nothing but skin and bone. You'll have just enough muscle to move your bones, but minimally. That's how weak you will get. So you'll do this one last, and then when you stop going to that, then you'll start going to your organs themselves. And that's how, and dying by starvation is incredibly painful. But fatty acids, this is happening outside the mitochondria. So amino acids is happening outside the mitochondria, but you're using gluconeogenesis. So you're brand new glucose. You're creating glucose out of nothing. You're creating glucose out of amino acids. You break into it, you actually create a pyruvate, and you actually have lactate as a byproduct of that. So that makes sense, right? So when you're working out and you get some lactic acidosis, you get a lactate as a byproduct of using protein. You get a lactate as a byproduct of that. And down here you get fatty acids. You're in the mitochondria. You're using that acetyl-CoA. You can use fatty acids to break into that Krebs cycle. But both of those can happen from using cortisol and glucagon. So meaning that those hormones are in effect. If glucagon is engaged and there's no more glycogen to be had, all the glycogen is gone. Now, with glucagon running around and the need for sugar, the need for sugar hasn't stopped. The need for glucose hasn't stopped, and glucagon is still circulating your body. Now you're going to start using other forms of metabolism. Does that make sense? And cortisol can also do that. What kind of hormone is cortisol?
Steroid.
It's a stress steroid, right? So it's an adrenal steroid. It's on top of your kidneys. And if you're stressed, if you're in that low-grade stress, being ill can cause cortisol release. Having just regular stress, not getting good sleep, being stressed for a test, being stressed because you don't know if that person likes you the way that you like them. Falling in love can release cortisol, right? There's all kinds of things that can release that kind of cortisol. So, but if you don't have enough stored energy, you'll eventually you'll do gluconeogenesis. So gluconeogenesis, this is important for you to hear. Gluconeogenesis will only occur after you used all of your all of your glucose, all of your stored glucose, all of your glycogen. It will only occur after you've used all of your glucose. And you will form glucose from proteins and fat. So protein catabolism. So if you're breaking down proteins, are you releasing energy or using energy?
You're releasing.
You're releasing it, correct. When do you use energy? During which
When you're
process?
doing these stuff.
Anabolic, right? An anabolic process. That's when you're using energy. So where this process occurs is actually in the liver. So you've now used all your glucose up, all the glycogen's gone. So now you start using up your proteins. This process occurs in the liver. And the byproduct of that is ammonia, urea, and urea. And now you have to get rid of these things. Your liver will convert this to urea. If you do not convert this, if your liver is broke, then you have free-ranging ammonia in your body. Goes right to your brain, what makes you go crazy, makes you encephalopathic. It's not good. So it has to convert that to urea. What happens to urea? What do you do with urea?
You pee it out.
You pee it out. That's right. That's what you do with urea. You pee it out. So protein has to be deaminated. You have to take the amine group off the protein. And then ammonia is converted to urea, and you excrete that urea in the urine. Your liver is doing that all in the Krebs cycle to produce the ATP. That's the whole point of it. You are changing your metabolism. If you are not able to have enough glucose in your body, you can do this in a hard workout, right? Some people work out without eating in the mornings. They intend to get to this state because they're trying to get to this state of catabolism a little bit and burn and build up muscle and burn through things, get rid of some fat. That's their point. And so they're going to burn through but when you wake up in the morning, have anybody ever really thought about what the term breakfast means? You're breaking your fast. You've been fasting for 8 to 10 hours, right? Depending on how long you've been sleeping. So you're breaking your fast. So your body overnight hasn't had any fuel. And then some people skip breakfast. Isn't that crazy? Now you're putting, even though some people, anybody heard of that weight loss method now that people are using the, what's that called?
Intermittent fasting?
Huh? Intermittent fasting, yeah. So you only eat like 6 hours a day, and then you put your body basically into a starvation mode. Also works.
Of
Until what happens?
Until you eat.
Until you start eating regular time, right? Because you change your metabolic pattern. If it's sustainable, do it. If it's not sustainable, you're gonna be chasing your tail. So, lipogenesis and lipolysis. So you have 9 kilocalories, 9 kilojoules per calorie is stored in your fat cells. So that's the most of anything. You don't store more calories or more energy in any other cell than in a fat cell. So when you synthesize the glucose from a fat globule, you are releasing a lot of energy, and you can produce a lot of ATP from that fat cell. So, and you're also epinephrine can do this. So when you get into a fight or flight, that can cause this too. Epi and norepi can enhance the lipolysis. So you're doing this in a tricyclic cycle. This is your pathway for it. I don't need you to memorize this. I just need you to memorize that gluconeogenesis occurs in the absence of any further glycogen and glucose. I do want you to know that it's enhanced by epi and norepi. It occurs in muscle, liver, and adipose tissue. Have you ever been running or working out, and wherever you have like any fat on your body, it starts to sting or itch? Has that ever happened to you? That's because you're starting to get into that. You're starting to get into that area. You're starting to get into some lipolysis. It's starting to work. That usually for me means it's time to stop. Like, oh, that's starting to bother me. I gotta stop. That's too much. Done too much. I'm kidding. But, yeah, so lipogenesis and lipolysis. So lipogenesis is when you're creating new fat. Lipolysis is when you're breaking it down. Ketogenesis, formation of ketone bodies. This is in the livers. Normally is when you're due to starvation or insulin deficiency. So that's what diabetic ketoacidosis means. So DKA occurs in type 1 diabetes. So there's 2 types of diabetes. Type 1 diabetes it's the autoimmune disease where you actually stop producing insulin. So you stop producing insulin. DKA is diabetic ketoacidosis.
Type 2 can't go into DKA?
Type 2s do not go into DKA. They go into a form of acidosis, but it's not a true ketoacidosis.
Alright, type 2.
Huh?
Type 2.
Type 2. Type 2 diabetes is from, they have their insulin receptors stop working. That's type 2.
So
You can reverse that initially with diet and exercise.
so type 2 diabetes, the diabetic people
and
are the
then-
ones.
so type 2, they don't initially treat with insulin. So they
That's
can,
one question.
yeah, they can initially treat type 2 with things like, what's the
Metformin?
metformin gives everybody the poops. Gives everyone the poops. And actually, once they start giving you metformin, people lose weight like this. You type 1 people, you'll see them when they first get diagnosed, they're very skinny. Type 2 people, what do they look like?
Obese.
Very obese. When you start putting them on any of these insulin inhibitors or insulin, the metformin or Ozempic. Anybody heard of Ozempic nowadays? Who's using Ozempic besides type 2 people?
Overweight people.
Overweight people who have yet to become diabetic. Yeah, they act like there's no bad thing that can happen to them, but it's going to hurt their liver and their kidneys.
So they don't have insulin receptors in the liver.
No.
So the insulin still binds to glucose. It just doesn't have where to go.
Say it again.
So the insulin, they still have insulin and insulin production,
They have plenty of insulin.
and it
The,
still
the
binds to
receptors
glucose.
are just saturated and they quit working.
So that they still, like the insulin still binds to glucose?
The insulin will not cross the glucose over into the cells. We'll see how that happens. So insulin is a lipophilic hormone, and it attaches on the outside of the cell, and it needs a camp. It has a process that it does to try to get the glucose in the cell, and once the receptor's burned out, that glucose is just sitting out there knocking on the door and no one answers. You can fix all of that with diet and exercise and not need any medicine. People have done it. Diet, exercise, and by diet I mean just managing like what you eat.
So what happened, like, they just start producing the receptors again?
Their receptors recover.
Oh,
Anyway, so you have adipose tissue. So adipose tissue, fatty acids, amino acids. You get in the liver, you get this ketogenesis, and you get ketone bodies. So this is from when you are producing ketone bodies, your body thinks it's starving. So people who are in that diet of keto, or doing a keto diet, you are basically telling your body that it's starving. And so that's the switch. You've changed your metabolism into a starvation diet. So no glucose. You're not taking any exogenous glucose on. You're just giving it proteins and fats. And so that's all it's breaking down is fats and proteins. And so your body thinks, oh man, I'm starving. And so from that point on, you're producing ketone bodies. And that changes your metabolism. And you will produce these ketone bodies and it will come out in your urine. And that is why you're able to lose weight. Because you'll start burning through your own fat. And the danger is you could also start burning through your muscle in that diet as well.
so what exactly are ketone bodies?
It's a byproduct of that metabolism. From the fatty acids. Both of these are fatty acids. Both of these are amino acids and fatty acids. From protein and fat, they're both producing acids. And so when you break those down and use them for metabolism, they produce these ketone bodies, which is an acid.
So you were saying that the people taking the Ozempic are ruining their liver?
They can. They can. If you're just using it for weight loss, every drug that we use has a side effect.
Right.
And what's sad though is that people who really need it for type 2 diabetes can't even get the drug because it's prescribed so heavily for people for being overweight. Everyone wants the easy pill, right? Everyone wants the magic pill that you just do it.
Yeah, I saw them.
Oh yeah.
Is that an
600
injection?
pounds.
Yeah, it's an injection.
Okay, my friend's mom does it.
Yeah, it's an injectable. And the thing is that the benefit of exercise is extraordinary. What's going to help you, will it improve your numbers? Yeah, your cholesterol's probably gonna come down. Your numbers are gonna be better, but are you as a human going to be better? Probably not. You probably haven't really fixed a thing, because what fixes us, what's gonna make us live longer, is diet and exercise. That's it. There is no magic to it. We are made for movement. So you can sit at your house and give yourself injections all the time, and you might be at a good weight. You're still gonna die of a heart attack at 70 because you didn't move your body. We're made for movement.
So does it stop your natural receptors if you don't have the diabetes and you're using the diabetic medicine?
So it's a good question. So, and we'll get to this. So it blocks, it's one of the uptakes of, so where we normally, so glucose comes back across, and we filter glucose out in our kidneys. And then we reabsorb it immediately in our nephron. So we have this glomerulus, and then we have this loops. So right here, we're gonna learn about this in a minute. So it gets filtered out, it's coming up actually, real soon. It gets filtered out in the glomerulus and then it gets immediately reabsorbed back into our system here at the proximal convoluted tubule, PCT. A lot of these medicines work right here and block that reabsorption, so you actually pee out that glucose instead of reabsorbing it. So it's doing a little bit of what we're doing here. It's letting some of it come across, so it doesn't put you in full ketoacidosis, but it's blocking a lot of that glucose reabsorption. So they figured out how to block it in your kidneys. So I don't think there's ever, so there's also a hormone in your fat, lepto, that it's supposed to send a message out. This is years ago, they thought we had the magic pill there. That's supposed to send a message to your brain that we have enough fat stored for satiety. So people, because that's really a big deal, right? Like for people a lot of people, the reason they gain weight is because they don't know when to stop eating. And so this hormone is supposed to tell us when to switch off. When you're full, stop eating. That's a big deal. Like what it turns out though is some people don't have receptors for that hormone. And that's genetic. Like who knows, I don't know why some receptors got turned off, but that's an interesting thing. I don't know the answer to that. It's an interesting thing.
Do you think you could like psychologically be trained not to like sense those like the hormones kind of?
I don't know.
So like,
I do know that I really feel strongly that what's in our food supply is killing America. I feel strongly that all of the additives and preservatives and all the crap in there is not, all the food dyes. I feel like it's slowly poisoning us. I do feel that way.
Yeah.
I mean, I just saw this thing like showing pictures of Americans on the beach 70 years ago. Literally, no one was overweight. There was less of the stuff in our food. I think that, and you know, a lot of the people, the anti-vaxxers want to blame vaccinations for the influx of ADHD and autism in these kids. I think it's what's in the food. And mom eats the food, and then the mom breastfeeds, or it comes across in the formula. I think it's in our food. I think some of these things are, I mean, we know that there's microplastics now.
Yeah.
They're finding microplastics in sperm. And that might be causing the low birth rates. So microplastics are everywhere. So there is something to it. We've all been cooking on these non-stick things. That's coming up and showing up in our bodies. Like that stuff's been shearing off and coming across in our food. I don't cook on those anymore.
Stainless steel.
I cook on my,
Cast iron.
no, the old ones. Cast iron, yeah. Cast iron. Is that what you said? Yeah, that's what I cook on, cast iron. You need to iron. You get that in your system, you're still okay. Cast iron, you can beat those things up. You'll never, you can live with that for the rest of your life. Cast iron, I love cooking with my cast iron. You get it nice and seasoned. It's the same thing as having a non-stick.
back home, my mom cooks a lot on those rock pans. I don't know if you guys have that here. It's made of like rock and minerals.
It's rock, but does the dude, the rock, like he comes and cooks for you?
I wish, but it's like a stone.
Oh, yeah.
or something.
I've heard some about those.
Hmm?
Do we have that here?
I don't know. I've never seen it. But there
Do you
is.
use it? Do you have a stone oven?
Stainless steel is also a good thing to use.
Stainless steel would work too, but that non-stick stuff, I think that's why we've had an uptick in stomach cancers.
Teflon.
Yeah.
I like
Teflon.
Teflon.
Yeah, Teflon, I think that's not good for us either. But everything to make it easier for us, right? Then they sold it great,
And they
the
like-
marketing on it
they
was
keep
great.
the food,
Less cleanup.
hot for like a whole day.
It certainly is less cleanup when you're dead.
Like this?
Hey, you ain't lying.
Right?
No, I'm trying to.
Okay, so this is ketoacidosis, again, we've talked about this kind of multiple times. So insulin deficiency, so this is type 1 diabetes. Because of an autoimmune process.
Brazilian.
You got the rock pot. Including soapstone. Stuff like that.
Is it expensive?
Yeah. Like $90.
Oh, that's not bad. Okay, so in your pancreas, your beta cells in your pancreas get attacked by your own immune system, stops production of insulin. You usually only find out when your blood sugars you come to the hospital and your blood sugars are 500-600, and you are in full ketoacidosis. You have plenty of blood sugar, but you're not using it for anything. You have fruity. Tell me some symptoms of that type 1 we talked about on Tuesday.
What?
Tell me
Sweet
some
breath.
symptoms.
Sweet breath.
Sweet breath,
Dehydration.
dehydration for sure,
Urinary, frequent.
Sticky.
frequent urination, sticky urine. Yep. They'll be, because they're dehydrated, what will be their heart rate?
High.
Tachycardic, and they'll have Kussmaul's breathing. Yeah, all of these things are spot
Oh, I
on.
saw that in the elevator the other day. One of the patients was getting on and they were panting out. I was like, dang, she was just talking about that last night. You could actually, it's almost like he was in a wheelchair with oxygen and still breathing like that.
Huh,
Then
yeah.
you won't be seeing.
So they are in full acidosis because they're using muscle and proteins for their metabolism. They're not able to use that glucose that's there in abundance. Plenty of glucose, they just can't get it across into their cells, and so they're using the muscle and proteins for fat. They will typically have lost a lot of weight in a very short amount of time too, and that is an example of ketoacidosis. Lipoproteins. This is when you've heard of this in terms of cholesterol. When you get older, you'll start getting your cholesterol checked. Actually, I think people should start getting their cholesterol checked in their 20s. Sometimes cholesterol, sorry, I had to have a sip. Sometimes cholesterol has nothing to do with what you eat, and is very familial, meaning it's genetic. So, but certainly what you eat is important. We make cholesterol, our liver makes cholesterol, and cholesterol is very important in our body. We make our own cholesterol, and we are able to eat our cholesterol. And some things will tell you it has cholesterol in it. It'll tell you on when you look at the food label if this has cholesterol in it. So, VLDL means very low density lipoprotein. LDL, low density lipoprotein. HDL, high density lipoprotein. Chylomicron, that's just what that is. You'll see they all have different levels of protein in it. Phospholipids, cholesterol, and triglycerides. So they're all in a certain levels of different formulations. So very low density lipoprotein. This is just a transport protein. This is just a transport VLDL. It transports dietary lipids from the GI to the adipose tissue. So this is your guy, once you've overeaten and you've got too much energy, this is your transporter to go stick it in the fat. This is what happens when I look at cake. Just looking at it, I create some VLDL and I go start storing some somewhere else. LDL, this is considered your bad cholesterol. This is the cholesterol if you overeat and you have too much bad cholesterol. If you like eating bacon, who doesn't like eating bacon? But I guess some people, because of their religion, doesn't like eating bacon. Do you know why? It's an interesting story.
Why what?
Why people don't eat bacon.
Depends. There's a lot of reasons.
There's one story in the Bible about
Yeah, there's the story that you cannot eat pork because it's a dirty.
They're filled
dirty.
full of
because it was
demons.
cast the demons into the pigs and yeah.
There's also a story that you cannot mix fabrics or you cannot eat shrimp.
Yeah, if when I retire from everything, I'm gonna go back to school and do theology, I think, just because it's interesting, all the different religions and how they got to where they are. It's interesting. Anywho, and I mean all of them. I'm talking Hinduism and Buddhism. I think all of them are very interesting. Life of Pi is a good book. I don't know if anybody's ever read it. Anyhow, so anything with a lot of fat content that you eat will make your, that's why before you get your cholesterol checked, you should be fasting. Not, you can't have anything before you get your cholesterol checked, because even even like a coffee with some half and half in it can impact this level when you get your labs drawn. So this is your bad cholesterol. This is what causes your vessels to have plaque. That's right. So your HDL, though, this is your good cholesterol. I call this the Roomba cholesterol. It goes around cleaning up excess LDL. So if your HDL is good, you know what improves your HDL? I'll give you one guess.
Vegetables.
Huh?
Exercise.
Exercise. Yes. Your body with exercise makes HDL higher. Good nutrition and exercise all by itself. It's your body's way of healing itself. Exercise makes your HDL go up. And chylomicrons is just how much fat you have from what you've eaten. So if you eat a lot of fatty foods, you'll have high chylomicrons or triglycerides. So VLDLs form in hepatocytes. Where's that at?
The liver.
Correct. And they go from there to storage. Again, LDLs is bad cholesterol. You'll need to know that. They carry up to 75% of your total cholesterol in your body. When we measure cholesterol, you want total cholesterol less than 200. They want LDL to be less than about 110.
What is a VLDL again?
Huh?
What is the VLDL?
Very low.
Very low density protein.
Yeah, but like, because the LDL carry the cholesterol and the VLDL, like what does it do?
So once it gets to where it needs to go, it drops to very low. It just becomes low.
So the LDL, you want to be less than 200, and the other one was what?
110.
On the high?
No, on the LDL is 110. Total cholesterol is 200. HDL, we want that greater than like 50. Greater than 40 or 50. We want that high. The higher that number is, the better, generally the better your LDL is. Because you've got more Roombas around there cleaning all of it up. It removes excess cholesterol from the arteries. It takes it to the liver for elimination. Anybody have any ideas how that gets eliminated from the body?
Being?
No?
When?
No? Poop.
That was my next guess.
You were running out of options. So, right. So, that LDL will definitely cause the plaque, but the HDL is going to come around and clean that up. For people who have high cholesterol, they take a medicine called a statin. Anybody heard of those? Prevestatin, that kind of thing. But the problem with those drugs is they can sometimes hurt the liver, and now you know why. Because it actually works in the liver to take care of the cholesterol. So we have to be careful with those medications. But I do want you to notice, HDL has the highest protein content. LDL has 25%, VLDL has the lowest protein content. So the highest protein content is the best of the cholesterols. And the chylomicron has pretty much none. Okay, absorptive state. This is what happens when you eat. You're sitting down for a meal, you're eating. You're masticating. What is masticating mean?
Chewing.
Yes, strong work, team. Right, you're chewing, you've chewed your food up well, it goes into your mouth. What do you start? What processes are occurring in your mouth?
Salivation.
Yep. What two digestions are going? Mechanical and chemical. Yes. Right, and so there's a particular one that's breaking down in your mouth. Which one is that?
Amylase.
Yes, salivary amylase. Y'all are doing so good. So now it's making it down in your gullet, getting down in your stomach. We start breaking down what in particular in our stomach. The first protein. We start breaking down pepsinogen with those G cells. So we've broken them all down. It's in our small intestine. That blood goes from our superior mesenteric vein to where?
Stomach.
No,
Celiac trunk?
liver through the portal vein. There you go. And so now it's gone to the liver cells, and now we're doing our thing in the liver, right? Glucose, amino acids, and lipids have entered the blood, gone to the liver, gone around, done their thing, and now we've settled in. Excess nutrients are stored in the hepatocytes, adipocytes, and skeletal muscle cells. We've eaten, we've digested, we've used, all the cells have done their thing, and now we've stored away.
How long does that process take?
It changes per person. So some people, especially people who have a very quick metabolism, they might get hungry, they might burn through that meal in an hour and are hungry again in 2.5 hours. Do you think that person's skinny or fat?
Skinny?
Skinny. Probably a teenage boy. Teenage boy could probably take about 3,000, 4,000 calories a day and not gain a pound because their metabolism is running nonstop. It's on fire. Their thyroid is sending out their human growth hormone is going like they're going. Now let's take that teenage boy and turn him into a 65-year-old man who maybe doesn't exercise, maybe doesn't eat breakfast. What do you think his calorie demand is?
1,800.
Maybe. I think we overestimated 2,000 calories a day. I don't think people move around enough for 2,000 calories. That's what's recommended on everything you say. It recommended 2,000 calories a day. I mean, I don't think most people even hit enough to do 2,000 calories. If you're not walking 10,000 steps a day, you probably shouldn't be taking in 10,000 calories or 2,000 calories a day. Probably shouldn't. And I can tell you, as you age, your thyroid starts to slow down, and your thyroid is what's setting your basal metabolic rate, so that will all change. The other thing that happens is some people have slow gut motility. So slow gut motility will also impact your basal metabolic rate. Some people can eat something and it sits in their gut for a long time, and it causes slow gut motility and slow body metabolism. They'll get very distended. They'll have pain, they'll have slow or issues with pooping. And that can be a bad thing. Any of that can be a bad thing. We call it gastroparesis if they have very slow gut motility. We can give them medicines to try to speed that up. Some people have very fast motility, and that leads to the exact opposite of that, which is they eat and they have dumping right away. We call that dumping syndrome. So you eat immediately. Now sometimes that's normal, right? You eat and you might have to go to the bathroom not too long after you eat. That's just telling your body, you're like, hey, you gotta make room. I just ate, so we need to speed up this process a little bit. But it shouldn't be diarrhea, it should be normal stool, right? So it just depends on the person, depends on their age, depends on their exercise, depends on their gastric motility. Also depends on if they have any food allergies. A lot of people have food allergies they don't know about. Sometimes they'll eat a food and they get bloated, they don't think too much about it. Maybe that's the only thing that they get from that food is bloating. Maybe they get extra gassy, they don't mind that. Maybe their family members mind it more than they do, right? Yeah.
I have a weird question. So, I had this one girl tell me that she's allergic to mangoes, and she went and got her hair done not too long ago, and it was like a mango scented shampoo that was used in her hair.
Oh, what kind of?
A mango scented.
Oh, mango.
shampoo.
Whoa.
Yeah, and her hair did break off in like 3 or 4 weeks. Can your hair be allergic to like?
That's interesting.
Sue them.
Probably.
Your hair is theoretically dead,
Okay.
but
Her scalp.
it could have been, her scalp is not, and if it got damaged at the root,
Mm-hmm.
it can fall out.
Anyone?
So if she had, it would be interesting to me if there was actual mango in the shampoo.
Okay.
Because sometimes I always think that's crap when whatever they sell on there, it's like,
Yeah.
whatever, but maybe it was.
And maybe stop sending oils to your hair
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
it will break.
And they sometimes use that, the, extract from the fruit. My daughter has a hair product line. She used the extract from the fruit, to actually, process it into her products.
Yeah, I mean, your body does funny things with what you're allergic to. Like, literally, people can live their whole life with a food allergy and not know it, but they'll eat something and then the next couple of days they might have a little upset stomach and they'll think, oh, just, whatever. But they've got a food allergy, they got a food sensitivity. That might be a better way to say it. They maybe have a food sensitivity and they just live with it. I'm gonna still eat that shrimp. I don't care. It causes my lips to swell and my face is closed down.
My throat to like close and not to breathe. But it's fine.
Totally fine. Totally fine. Okay, so that's the absorptive state. Now you got the post-absorptive state. And it's pretty much like I've been talking about pretty much this whole time. So your body's used all of that. During the absorptive state, it had plenty of stuff. It had plenty of nutrients, it had plenty of glucose, it had plenty of stuff. But now 3 or 4 hours later, now it's on gas, it's on fumes. Now your belly starts rumbling. Now the commercial for the Snickers thing really hits hard. You're thinking about that Snickers a little bit harder. Now you're going to start breaking down liver glycogen, lipolysis, and the gluconeogenesis. And glucagon comes out and starts doing its thing. So maybe other hormones. Epi might do its thing too. This is when people start getting hangry, and epi really does start playing an effect. So now you're in that post-absorptive state, and now you have to start releasing any of the stored. You've got to go back to the storage tank to bring out some stuff because you've run out of easily accessible things, right? That's what happens in the post-absorptive state.
HDO.
C.
Correct.
Like, Plaque?
Yeah, plaque.
Plaque?
Plaque.
Is that how you say it?
Yeah. So basal metabolic rate, right, again, it's influenced by many, many, many things. It is not a given. You can impact this by any number of things. There are foods that boost your metabolism. Boosting your metabolism is another one of these multi-million-dollar things that people are into, because this is the best way to do it. But you can also eat foods that do it. Cinnamon does it. What is that hot sauce that you can do?
Cayenne.
Huh?
Cayenne.
Cayenne pepper can do it. Turmeric can do it. Any kind of stuff like that can help boost your metabolism. But it is everything that I said: diet, exercise, age, gender, muscle mass, hormone levels. I will tell you, post-menopause, it's really hard to lose weight. When all your hormones really matter, men included. So what's that guy, the baseball player who's always talking about taking that tea extra?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because after a certain age for men, your testosterone level does start to trend down. And that actually makes it harder for you to lose weight. So it's not just women, it's men too. And heat is the byproduct of metabolic reactions. That's why we have a temperature. What is our normal temperature, body temperature?
98.6.
Yeah, they lied about that a little bit. So 98.5 is what they all tell us Fahrenheit. If most of us right now went to the doctor, maybe most of us would be somewhere around 97.9. You see this probably. Yeah, most people aren't 98.5 anymore.
The world is.
It's because we don't do much anymore. We're so sedentary, so we don't produce as much heat. I think that's really the issue. Like, we just don't do anything. So your thyroid gland is where you produce, it's all right, your thyroid, T3 and T4, that's what tells you to go burn some energy. It's your furnace. Your hypothalamus is what sets your temperature in your brain. Again, your internal core temperature, which we just talked about. It sets it. It can be displaced by viruses and bacteria, but also hormone regulation, exercise, sympathetic nervous system regulation. Yeah.
I don't know if it's related, but like if a person have hyperhidrosis, like
We're sweating so much.
the metabolic will change also.
There's probably a couple things for that. There can be, I would definitely think there's an endocrinological reason for that. So that you would have to have your hormones checked. They almost always have to do something with the sweat glands too. They have to kind of step those things. But almost always there's some sort of endocrine dysfunction.
Yeah, but would that change the metabolic rate also?
You would think, but women
Because
who are
it's fatty water and
postmenopausal,
then
who have hot flashes, they hardly ever lose weight. And those women will, that you will see women having a hot flash, their face they'll be completely flushed, and it could be 28 degrees outside, and they might be outside in sweat and like just shorts and a shirt because they're that hot. Hot flashes are no fun. And they don't lose any dang weight. So that doesn't make any sense. I have
You're
complained about it to the
technically
man upstairs, and he doesn't seem to care.
Because you're technically like, you're like releasing energy technically,
You
because
would
you're like
think.
sweating, but.
You would think. I agree. I don't have a physiological answer for that. Thermoregulation. So, we are all doing this all the time. Our bodies really love homeostasis, right? We love a pH that makes sense. We live in a very narrow pH. We also live in a very narrow temperature. Our metabolism, the result of our metabolism is heat. Actually, we are not very good about we waste a lot of energy, and that energy comes out as heat. So, when we get cold, and for Floridians, cold is like 50 degrees, and so there were people who were wearing shorts, but then wearing like big, like parkas out there, because it was 50. But when we get cold, what happens in our extremities? What happens in our
Shiver?
They get colder, and they vasoconstrict, right? So I don't know if you've ever been in snow or ice. That's actually the part that's why I can never actually live in a cold place, because I hate cold feet. They get colder, because the whole point of that is to conserve your heat. And so you conserve your heat by shunting everything off in your extremities and putting it in your core where it matters. Your heart, your lungs, your brain, your kidneys. You don't care about, your body doesn't care if your toes fall off. Your body cares if you get so cold in your core that you die. So you vasoconstrict. It will increase your thyroid hormone. So you turn up your furnace comes up. Then last but not least, you shiver. What does shivering do?
Generate heat.
Generates heat. That's it. When else do we shiver?
When we're
Scared?
When we start having a fever. That's right. That's how we create the fever. So if you are so cold that you shiver and then you stop shivering, you have now reached hypothermia, and you're about to fall asleep and not wake up. Huh?
I said scary.
Yeah, that's of all the ways to die though, that's not a horrible way one, honestly. But
You
not,
feel
not optimal. Huh?
Do you feel it all the way through?
No, at that point you're probably numb.
And I think they go through a mental part where they get hot, they think they're hot and strip out of all their clothes.
Yeah, that happened too. But at that point
You crazy.
you're
Don't sound naked.
you probably got people around you that are dead, they're waiting on you.
Damn.
High body temperature. Both of these extremes will kill you. High body temperature. We sweat. We vasodilate. We get flushed. And that's bringing our blood to our skin to release that heat. What do we have here in Florida that makes that hard to do?
Humidity.
Humidity. That humidity makes it hard to release that energy of that sweat on our skin, right? Unless we have a good breeze, that humidity doesn't allow for that sweat to evaporate. Without evaporation, we hold that heat right to us. Now it's like a thermal blanket on top of us. So that's why it's dangerous, and the heat can be very dangerous here in Florida. It's dangerous for the elderly, it's dangerous for those kids out playing football. When it's very hot, they can overheat very, very, very quickly. There was a University of Florida football player years ago, when Steve Spurrier was the coach here, who overheated and had a core temperature of 106 degrees, I think, when he made it in. It's not hard. It can happen very quickly. So when you get a high body temperature, you decrease your thyroid hormones, and then you sweat. When you stop sweating outside and you're still hot, that's a bad sign. You got to get into start cooling off. So we evaporate, and that helps to release that heat energy and get it off. I mean, last night I'm so sore from my workout last night, it's ridiculous. And I've been working out now for over a year. And I'm in this hot yoga class, and like the rivulets of sweat, I got it in I had sweat build up in my ear canal. It was super disgusting, like burning in my eyes. Burned like 600 calories.
I do that every time I work out.
Yeah, crazy. But if I ever stopped sweating in there, I knew I'd be in trouble. So I have to hydrate like crazy before I go into these classes, or I'd probably pass out.
Like the constriction.
You say me?
Yeah.
That would be correct.
Is this all for test 2?
Test 3?
3, yes.
Mm-hmm.